Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here on by set with trial attorney Segal Blakemant. We're going to break down the biggest live trials and legal stories in the news today. A lot is happening, so I want to get started right now. Okay, Segal, a lot to break down there. The one thing that I didn't hear, the one thing the prosecution made very clear, is yes, she seems to be panicked. Yes, she seems to be frantic. Yes, she said, I went to the wrong apartment. The one thing I don't hear in this self-defense case, he was coming at me. He was going to kill me. He was going to rush towards me. Nothing like that. What does that tell you?
Well, there really are two ways to look at it. From the prosecution's point of view, they would agree with that analysis. They would say there is nothing in that phone call about her having to defend herself, about her having to be in fear of her life, that she was in any danger, or justifying her actions. On the other hand, you could also argue that that may even look staged. I mean, remember that this is after the fact, after she had already shot him. At that point, it was a done deal. She realized after she shot him that she made a mistake. If she would have kept repeating on the call, you know, I felt like I was in danger, I felt like my life, you know, that I was gonna die, that he was gonna kill me, I think it would have looked very staged, like she's already trying to make an excuse for why she shot him.
That's really interesting you should say that, because if I recall, the prosecution said she didn't have enough time at that point to make up a story. So that's the real story. There was no danger to her. And we're going to show you in a second the make out of that apartment. Look at this right now. There's an ironing board right there. He's sitting on the couch. How would someone make their way through all of that to come attack her? That's the thing that caught my eye when we saw that body cam footage. Do you see the same kind of thing there? It's not like he was right in front of the door.
I do. I don't believe that at this point we know exactly position-wise where they were. The defense is claiming that he was coming at her when she shot him. And the prosecution is obviously claiming that he was either in a seated position or he was about to get up, so he couldn't have been that threatening.
Right.
But the only person who really knows that's alive to tell the story would be Guyger.
That's exactly right. And look, there has been discussion that all he was doing that night, I mean, this is really horrible. He was just sitting, watching TV, eating a bowl of ice cream at almost 10 o'clock at night when she comes into his apartment. Now, I want to go back to yesterday with Officer Michael Lee, who responded to the scene. This is pretty interesting if you haven't seen it. Let's listen to what he had to say yesterday. Okay, Segal, I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question here, because this is a back and forth about did she do the proper police protocols? Wasn't she supposed to take cover? Let's assume that was her apartment, okay? Let's assume that was her, and let's say he was an intruder. Everything that she did, would it have been justified then? So we take away the fact she went to the wrong apartment. She goes to the right apartment. He's in that apartment. He's in the same position. Was that shooting justified based upon what we know so far in this case? And I'm curious your perspective on that.
Well, that's exactly what the defense is trying to argue, that she believed in her mind that in fact it was her apartment and that in fact he was an intruder. So what they're asking the jury to do is put yourself in her shoes, and what if it was your apartment or you really thought? There's really no difference between her really believing it was her apartment and in fact it believing it was her, in fact it being her apartment.
But under Texas law, right, there's this thing, the castle doctrine. You can use deadly force to protect yourself in your home, but it's not a blanket excuse to open fire. So she goes in, shouldn't she have taken cover? I mean, he's unarmed, he's in that apartment. So even if we're assuming that he was an intruder, even if we say, okay, it was reasonable, she thought it was her apartment, everything else, isn't that questionable? Why did she open fire so quickly? Was he really a threat? Shouldn't she have taken cover?
Well, again, I'm going to play devil's advocate. You know, we don't know really what went on inside. Obviously, their story is that she believed that her life was in danger, and that's why she shot. It's not like she saw someone sitting there, he didn't make a move, and she shot him.
Okay, let's do a little legal analysis. We have the layout of the apartment. I believe we have it out, and I want to ask you something to see under the law if this actually works. Okay, so this is the apartment right here, right? And based upon where he was sitting on the couch, and based upon where the entrance is to the door, you know, you tell me, look how cluttered it is. It's not an open space. Can you still be in reasonable fear of your life if he is in a different area that seems to be kind of obstructed from where she was entering? Can you still be in fear of your life there?
Well, that's exactly why the prosecution brought this into evidence. I mean, that's part of building their case as to why she was not reasonable in believing that her life was in danger. But again, remember, you have split seconds to make a decision, whether you're the regular person or a police officer. And it's very hard in retrospect to judge someone. If you're not in those shoes, you have seconds to make a decision. The question is whether her decision was reasonable or not.
So let me ask you this follow-up question. You can teach officers day in, day night how to prepare for an ongoing situation. We have a belief there's a burglary. You're going to report to the scene. Maybe that's when you take cover. Maybe that's you do it. But if you're walking into your own home, off duty, do those same rules apply to you of being an officer? You should still follow those same protocols if you're hit by surprise?
Well, again,
what do you think?
These are the two sides that are being presented. The prosecution is saying that she should have followed protocol because she is a police officer,
right,
whether she was off duty or not. And what the defense is saying is, no, why are you applying that standard to her? You have to apply the standard of a reasonable, regular person, how they would react in the situation. Because at that time, she was not responding to a call. So it's very different.
It's different, and I got to tell you, this is tough. We've been breaking it down here on Law and Crime. We actually have a blog up on lawandcrime.com between all of our hosts breaking down the complicated legal issues. Can you even imagine what it's like for a jury when they're ultimately handed this case? We're going to take a break. When we come back, clearly a lot more to discuss. Stay tuned.